The 1970s were a complicated decade for the American middle class. Inflation was rampant, averaging 7% throughout the decade and hitting double digits by the end. Yet, life for the middle class was a mix of post-war thriftiness and the rise of consumerism. Today, we're flipping through the old ledger, uncovering 20 items and experiences that shaped the lives of middle-class Americans, from practical household essentials to the pioneering technology of the era. Let's find out what made the American dream so different in the 70s. Buying a starter home. For the middle class in the 70s, buying a house was practically the default setting. Today, it's much harder, often requiring you to be rich or lucky. Back then, the American middle class, especially outside the coastal cities, often purchased modest three-bedroom houses. Financially, the average household income increased significantly during the decade, moving from around $9,800 to nearly $18,000. The average home price also rose from $26,000 to about $59,000. What's remarkable is that many middle-class families could afford a home on a single income, often from a factory, civil service, or retail job. A working man could support a large family, travel, and even build his own house. Although mortgage rates were quite high at the time, around 9% in 1975, the high inflation helped tremendously. For instance, a medium-priced house in 1975 resulted in an initial monthly payment of about $1,000, adjusted for $2,017. However, the core difference was that the high inflation of the 70s constantly eroded the real value of that monthly payment. That $1,000 payment would quickly feel like $500 in buying power in just a few years, as wages also increased with inflation. This is a complete reversal from today, where low inflation means monthly payments hold nearly the same real value for the entire loan term. Additionally, young people in the 70s needed only half the down payment that young people today need. Buying that starter home was the biggest expense and the clearest symbol of the middle class in this decade. Some families even managed to build their own three-bedroom, one-bathroom house for around $10,000 back in 1959 or 1960, something nearly impossible now. Once the biggest investment, the house, was secured, families needed reliable transportation. One car per family. Unlike today's car-centric parent culture, where everyone old enough has a vehicle, in the 70s, most middle-class households only had one car and made it work. Having a second car was a luxury, not a given. These cars served every need: groceries, long-distance travel, and transporting children. Kids usually walked, rode bikes, or took the bus to school. The school drop-off culture barely existed. When a new family car was needed, it was a major purchase. For example, a new family car like a 1973 Chevrolet Impala cost about $3,200. This was a significant portion of the family's annual income, which ranged between $10,000 and $18,000 during that decade. The purchase was not just the initial cost, but also maintenance and operating costs. The father, often the primary worker, might do his own repairs, keeping maintenance costs low. Many families drove older cars, sometimes bought cheaply at police auctions for about $100. The family vehicle was often a station wagon. It was packed full of gear, serving as the car for summer road trips. The middle class spent carefully on their single vehicle, viewing it as an essential tool, not a status symbol. They had to make one car work because it was the most economical way to manage the family budget, especially considering fuel costs. That single car needed gas, which brings us to one of the most volatile expenses of the decade: gasoline/fuel costs and the crisis. The 70s are infamous for the energy crisis. This event, starting with the 1973 oil crisis and escalating after the 1979 Iranian Revolution, profoundly impacted middle-class spending. Before the crisis in 1973, a gallon of gas along U.S. Route 61 cost just 25 cents. Filling up a Volkswagen Bug might cost only $2.50. But prices changed drastically. Less than a year after the OAPEC oil embargo, in response to U.S. support for Israel in the 1973 Yom Kippur War, the price jumped. Between 1973 and 1980, gas prices more than tripled, soaring from 36 cents to over $1.25 a gallon. By 1979, the price was 72 cents a gallon, and 2 years later, after the Iranian Revolution, it jumped to $1.42 a gallon. These costs, while seemingly small by today's standards, truly hurt household finances. Consumers faced hours-long lines at the pumps, ironically wasting gas idling while inching forward. This shortage pushed prices higher, leading to the term stagflation, a combination of stagnant growth and price inflation. The energy crisis forced the American middle class to change consumer habits. It drove initial efforts toward energy-saving technologies, particularly fossil fuel efficiency. The fuel expense, although smaller than other major costs, was volatile and uncertain, causing significant shocks to the budgets of middle-class families who couldn't work from home and had to drive to their jobs. After covering external essentials, let's look at the small but fixed costs that maintained daily life and education within the home. Newspaper and magazine subscriptions. Before the internet and handheld devices, the middle class got their news via paper. A daily newspaper subscription was a small, regular, but necessary household expense. Papers were printed, folded neatly, and often delivered right to your door, usually by a 12-year-old on a Schwinn bike before school. Most middle-class families subscribed to at least one daily paper and a Sunday edition. Major papers provided national and local news. Beyond the paper, families spent money on popular magazines. The TV Guide was essential for checking schedules on the new color TV, more on that later. Others included Reader's Digest and National Geographic, offering entertainment and education. These magazines helped shape the worldview of a generation that didn't have easy, instant access to information. This is an example of consumer behavior that differs sharply from today. Now, middle-class families allocate a substantial portion of their income to tech services like the internet, smartphones, and streaming services. Conversely, in the 70s, spending on technology-related products and services was minimal. These small monthly costs for newspaper and magazine subscriptions served as the primary information, education, and entertainment expense for the family. Recliner chairs. If you were middle class in the 70s, you absolutely had a recliner. It wasn't just furniture, it was a symbol of family status, often called Dad's chair. This large chair had a characteristic clunk sound when it reclined. It was often upholstered in popular materials like naugahyde or corduroy. It was expensive, not loose change, but worth it to the buyers. This chair was ritualistic. No one else was allowed to sit in that chair when Dad was watching the evening news or following a game. Culturally, the recliner represented middle-class stability and security, and was a physical expression of relaxation and domestic power. It was the spot where the father, often the family's sole earner, could rest after a long day's work. Purchases of large furniture like this, along with other major appliances, were carefully planned and expected to last for years, reflecting the middle class's thriftiness and long-term investment mindset. Major household goods like stoves, refrigerators, washers, dryers, and sewing machines were common purchases recorded in consumer expenditure surveys of the time. The recliner, along with the TV, made the living room or family room the household's main entertainment center in the 70s, solidifying the focus on family-centered entertainment. It was an essential luxury worth the cost. What color was your dad's recliner? Did you dare sit in that chair when he wasn't home? Share your memories of this iconic piece of furniture in the comments. Formal china sets. Every middle-class home in the 70s had the good dishes. This was a major, careful social expense, often received as wedding gifts or bought via layaway. They were carefully stored behind glass cabinets, only brought out for special occasions. Christmas, Thanksgiving, or when mom wanted to prove the family was settled. This formal china was not bought casually. A full set could cost hundreds of dollars, a significant expense the middle class had to budget for. Owning it symbolized accomplishment, the continuation of traditional values, and the ability to host formal gatherings. Crucially, you didn't eat dinner on them every day. They were display items, an investment in social image and family value. Similarly, other housewares like glassware, linens, towels, and small kitchen appliances were bought on layaway or received as gifts. They represented durable goods that the middle class spent money on to improve their quality of life at home. This spending reflected a priority on material assets that defined a traditional family. Consumer expenditure reports from 1972 to 1973 detailed items like household furniture, small appliances, and china as part of quarterly surveys. These items were markers of a middle-class household, accumulating assets and achieving post-war stability. If the good dishes were for special occasions, one item was used almost every night: the TV. Color TV. By the 1970s, owning a TV was standard, but the color TV was the middle-class goal. While black and white sets still existed, often relegated to the basement or bedrooms, color TV became the standard. This decade saw the massive proliferation of color TV. By 1972, about 50% of U.S. households owned one. By 1980, that number grew to about 80%. Reliable brands like RCA, Zenith, and Magnavox were favorites. The TV was usually housed in a wooden console, serving as a piece of furniture that families literally had to make space for. Color TV turned evening viewing into a shared ritual. The family gathered to watch favorites like The Brady Bunch, MASH, or The Price is Right. This was central home entertainment, and the crucial rule was, no one was allowed to touch the dial without permission. Switching to color TV was a significant expense, but it was a practical upgrade rather than a mere status symbol. It provided a better entertainment experience, strengthening family values by keeping everyone home together. The rise of color TV also paved the way for other home entertainment technologies, like the later Pong console. TV, along with other major appliances, was recorded in the 1972 to 1973 Consumer Expenditure Survey, indicating these were big assets the middle class spent money on. Watching TV was visual entertainment. But what about the audio experience? Vinyl records. The 1970s were the peak of the vinyl LP. Buying records was a regular and important expense for the middle class, from teenagers to fathers relaxing in their recliners. The record market boomed, with hundreds of millions of albums sold annually. By the end of the decade, over 300 million LPs were being sold yearly. This was the golden age of music, featuring legendary artists like Fleetwood Mac, Led Zeppelin, Stevie Wonder, Pink Floyd, and the Bee Gees. Buying a new album was a major event and a way for people to stay current culturally. Music spending wasn't limited to vinyl. Middle-class families also spent money on quality stereo systems and audio equipment to play these records. Owning a great stereo and a robust record collection was a sign of financial stability and a well-rounded recreational life. As technology advanced, personalized audio began to emerge. Late in the decade, Sony introduced the Walkman in 1979. Priced around $150, the Walkman revolutionized personal audio by allowing people to listen to music on the go. While the Walkman symbolized the shift from family audio, vinyl, to personal audio, cassette, vinyl remained the decade's dominant format. If music was home entertainment, going out on a Friday night meant going to the movies. Movie tickets. In the 70s, going to the movies was a traditional Friday night entertainment for the middle class. Today, going to the theater might be seen as expensive or inconvenient, but back then, it was an unmissable community and cultural experience. The cost of seeing a film was very affordable, allowing the entire family to participate. A movie ticket was only about $2. For that price, you could take the whole family, buy popcorn, and still have change left over for soda. This shows that external entertainment was not a luxury expenditure, but a regular part of the budget. The 70s are considered the golden age of cinema, launching iconic films like Jaws, Star Wars, The Godfather, Grease, and Rocky. These films were not just entertainment, they were huge cultural events that defined the spirit of the decade. Going to the movies contrasts with the habit of eating out. While middle-class families went to the movies regularly, they rarely ate out. Stopping at a grocery store on a road trip or preparing sandwiches at home was common. Eating at a restaurant was considered a special event, a treat, not a daily habit as it is today. Thus, spending $2 on a movie ticket provided much greater entertainment value than frequent dining out. Enjoying this trip down memory lane? Don't forget to hit the hype button. It's the best way to help our channel grow. Thank you so much. Encyclopedia Britannica sets. Before Google and Wikipedia, encyclopedia reference. Nearly every respectable middle-class household in the 70s had a bookshelf filled with these matching hardcover volumes. Buying these sets was a significant investment in a child's education. A full set could cost a large sum, often purchased through door-to-door salesmen. Salesmen would convince mothers that this was essential for their children's academic future. To ease the financial burden, these sets were often paid for in monthly installments. The layaway system, common at department stores like JCPenney, was also applied to high-value educational items like this. Culturally, the encyclopedia set was a clear middle-class status symbol. It showed respect for education, traditional values, and stability. Today, the cost of education has skyrocketed. In the 70s, higher education was more accessible and affordable, and massive student debt was uncommon. Spending a few $100s on an encyclopedia set seems minor compared to the massive student loan debt later generations faced to achieve advanced degrees. Degrees increasingly required for middle-class jobs. The Britannica set represented a simple, tangible, and financially manageable approach to education. Now that we have the house, the car, and the knowledge, let's see how middle-class families spent money on summer vacations. Affordable camping gear. Not every middle-class family could afford a summer trip to Disneyland. Disneyland was, in fact, a classic middle-class vacation, especially since Disney parks didn't offer local discounts until the 90s. However, for many, camping was the affordable travel choice, the budget vacation of the 70s. Once the initial gear was bought, families could use it for years. Shopping was often done through the Sears catalog, including cheap nylon tents, Coleman stoves, sleeping bags, folding chairs, bug spray, and maybe canned food like SpaghettiOs. The initial cost was relatively low and maintenance costs were extremely cheap. National parks and public campgrounds often charged very little, sometimes just a few dollars a night, or even nothing if you accepted primitive setups. Camping and hiking were classic, inexpensive forms of relaxation, sometimes feeling like survival training. The camping experience was an important way to reinforce traditional values, bringing the family together for outdoor activities. This contrasted with more expensive forms of travel. In the 70s, campers were loaded up and hitting the road, offering a way to travel without the expense of hotels. Camping often went hand in hand with another summer tradition, the road trip. Road trips. For most middle-class families, flying was too expensive and resorts were for the wealthy. Therefore, to make summer truly feel like summer, the most reasonable expenditure was the road trip. The 70s summer vacation meant loading up the family car, often the large station wagon. Preparation for the long drive was thorough. Food was carefully packed in a cooler, usually sandwiches, chips, and maybe a big jug of Kool-Aid. This maximized savings as eating out was rare. The biggest expense on the road was lodging. Motels were popular, costing only about $20 to $30 a night. These were often private, family-run establishments, mom and pops, or chains like Howard Johnson's. These trips often lasted a week or 10 days. Road trips were often more educational than today's flyover trips. The family would drive, stopping at roadside attractions with no fixed itinerary. Getting lost was sometimes part of the adventure, allowing them to discover unplanned places. Popular trips included visiting national parks like Yosemite or Yellowstone, or trips to beaches like the Chesapeake Bay. Road tripping was an experience expense that fit the middle-class budget, allowing them to create memories without needing to be rich. During your 70s road trip, what food was essential in your family's cooler? Tell us about your best roadside picnic lunch. Microwave ovens. In the 70s, the microwave quickly transitioned from a bulky luxury item to a practical middle-class upgrade. Early in the decade, few owned one. They were expensive. Only about 40,000 units were sold across the US in the early 70s. However, the boom was rapid. By 1975, over 1 million were in American homes. The real shift came in the late 70s when brands like Sharp launched smaller, more affordable countertop models. At this point, the microwave was no longer a status symbol, but a convenience upgrade. By 1980, about 15% of US households owned a microwave, and that number continued to rise. This purchase symbolized the middle-class investment in kitchen convenience, a trend driven by the increasing number of women entering the workforce. Although women's participation in the workforce grew, they still faced pressure to prepare dinner. The microwave offered a technological solution to ease this burden. Along with other appliances like food processors and slow cookers, the microwave redefined eating habits. The cost of these devices, while not as large as a house, was part of the nascent growth of household technology spending in that decade. If the microwave offered speed, the next popular appliance offered convenience slowly. Crockpots. The crockpot exploded in popularity in the 1970s. Launched nationally in 1971, these slow cookers were marketed as the answer for busy families and working mothers. The crockpot's philosophy was simple yet revolutionary. Dump ingredients in before leaving for work, and dinner is hot, hearty, and ready when you get home. It required no supervision and could even make tough cuts of meat edible. Even if the food was borderline overcooked, no one complained about the convenience. The popularity of the crockpot reflected the major social shift of the 70s. With women increasingly joining the workforce, two-income households became more necessary to maintain a middle-class lifestyle. Therefore, time-saving appliances like the crockpot became a priority expenditure. Buying a crockpot, along with other modern kitchen devices like the Cuisinart food processor, which we'll cover next, demonstrated the middle class's willingness to invest in kitchen automation to balance work and family. This was a new household essential, making middle-class life more manageable amid economic and social changes. Cuisinart food processor. The Cuisinart food processor was a pioneering appliance combining multiple functions, slicing, chopping, and mixing into one. Priced around $200, the Cuisinart was a significant investment for the family kitchen. However, it quickly gained popularity, not just with professional chefs, but with home cooks. The purchase of a Cuisinart symbolized the transition from traditional kitchen tools to automation technology, where electronics reduced meal preparation time. The $200 cost for the Cuisinart and the similar cost for the Panasonic automatic bread maker, a revolutionary device in the 70s, showed that the middle class was spending money to improve efficiency and convenience in the home. The Cuisinart food processor became a staple in many kitchens. The Cuisinart, along with the crock pot and microwave, proved that the middle class was spending money to adapt to increasingly busy lives. While modern tech spending, like internet and smartphones, is a major burden today. In the 70s, consumer technology primarily consisted of useful, time-saving household gadgets. These appliances were tracked in the quarterly survey of consumer expenditures. Moving out of the kitchen, we head to the living room, where new entertainment technology arrived. Atari Home Pong Console. In 1975, the Atari Home Pong console was released. Priced at $98.95, this device revolutionized home entertainment by bringing the popular arcade game into the living room. Pong was highly accessible to the masses due to its simple design and 2 built-in controllers. Its launch was a huge success. Over 150,000 units were sold in the first year alone. Pong marked the start of the home video game industry. For the middle class, this was a breakthrough entertainment expense. Previously, video games were mostly played outside, like the Mattel Auto Race handheld game, which came later costing about $25. Pong offered a new experience, gathering family and friends around that new color TV they had just bought. The arrival of Pong wasn't just a toy expenditure, it foreshadowed the shift in entertainment spending. Middle-class families spent money on these technological innovations, laying the groundwork for today's multi-billion-dollar industry. This item is now considered a part of gaming history, symbolizing the early days of home video games. Still with us on this nostalgic journey? Drop a yes in the comments so we know you're enjoying it. Pulsar P1 digital watch and Clive Sinclair pocket calculator. The 70s saw the birth of the personal digital age, starting with the Pulsar P1 digital watch. Introduced in 1972, the P1 retailed for a massive $2,100. It featured an LED screen and required the wearer to push a button to display the time. Initially, it was a luxury item, representing the cutting edge of technology. However, this technology quickly became more accessible to the middle class. By the mid-70s, companies like Seiko and Casio mass-produced more affordable digital watches. The arrival of the digital watch showed the appeal of new technology and the public's willingness to spend money on personal innovations, later cemented by the Casiotron, 1974, which merged watch and calculator functions. Alongside digital watches came the pocket calculator. Clive Sinclair's pocket calculator, early 70s, was one of the first truly pocket-sized electronic calculators. Although initially highly priced, around £79.95, they rapidly gained popularity, replacing mechanical calculators and laying the groundwork for modern handheld devices. For example, the Boer 9901B with a bright LED display sold for about $240, with about 100,000 units sold during that period. Polaroid SX70 Instant Camera. The Polaroid SX70 camera, launched in 1972, created a sensation. This device amazed users by developing photos immediately after shooting. Priced around $180, it was a combination of convenience and innovation. The SX70 quickly became immensely popular, selling millions worldwide. It allowed the middle class to instantly capture family moments without the wait time for film development. The SX70 wasn't the only Polaroid instant product. Polar Vision, launched in 1977, allowed users to shoot and develop short films, 3 minutes at home. Though it was expensive, $600 for the camera and $15 per film cassette, and ultimately failed against VHS. The purchase of the SX70 with its $180 initial cost was a significant expenditure for a non-essential entertainment device, but it reflected the middle class's willingness to spend money on innovation that provided instant gratification. It was a symbol of Polaroid's pioneering spirit in instant photography. Today, the SX70 remains a beloved collector's item, maintaining its legacy as a timeless innovation. The contrast with later digital photography is clear. Kodak invented the first digital camera prototype in 1975 but didn't pursue it, fearing disruption to their lucrative film business. The middle class in the 70s spent money on Polaroid because it was the most convenient way to get quick photos, without waiting decades for digital technology to become widespread. Buying clothes on layaway. In the 70s, buying clothes often meant using layaway. Layaway was especially popular for middle-class families seeking to balance their budget while still getting seasonal clothing. The system worked like this. You chose essential items, school clothes for children, winter coats, church shoes, and then paid for them in small installments until the full value was paid off. Layaway was particularly popular at major general stores like J.C. Penney and Montgomery Ward. This installment plan allowed middle-class families to stretch their paychecks. Purchases of consumer goods, particularly clothing and other items listed in the 1972 to 1973 Consumer Expenditure Survey, were carefully managed. Clothing purchases were often detailed by type: shirts, dresses, pants, shoes, and the age/gender of the family member. Spending on clothes reflected post-war thriftiness. Instead of relying on credit cards and debt like today, layaway was a financial mechanism that allowed families to save for the item, while ensuring their children had the appropriate wardrobe for the school year or winter. This also applied to large household items or formal china. Avon Cosmetics. In middle-class neighborhoods of the 70s, the doorbell frequently rang with the arrival of the Avon lady. Avon represented small but regular expenditures on cosmetics and personal items. Avon became a cultural icon. It offered practical, affordable makeup, and most importantly, it was delivered straight to your living room. The convenience of shopping at home via catalog and from a familiar neighbor was a preferred business model. In addition to cosmetics, other personal care expenses were part of daily spending. In the 1972 to 1973 Consumer Expenditure Survey, spending on personal supplies, personal care services, and prescription drugs were carefully recorded. However, it was the Avon lady who provided the social element and personal connection. The Avon ladies were often better tapped into neighborhood gossip than anyone else, while modern technology spending has replaced many personal and shopping activities, e.g. online shopping. Buying Avon Cosmetics through an in-person salesperson reflects a priority on community interaction and simple family fun, and most importantly, financial stability rooted in traditional values. Thank you so much for watching.